Hello everyone, I'm Procheta. Today I'll be presenting our paper titled Gender Stereotypes in Virtual Agents with my co-author Nilay Yalçın from Simon Fraser University. So recently, we see a large number of virtual agent applications mirror the gender stereotypes. The social role theory suggests the gender stereotypes originate from the observation of different gender in their social functions. Female stereotypes have been dominated by communion traits, which are reflected in social roles such as assistants, caretakers, and companions. But male stereotypes were dominated in agency and competence traits, such as mentors, motivators, and exercise coaches. By mirroring these stereotypes, we see a surge in the use of female gender cues in both academic and commercial assistant agents. So a recent UNESCO report reveals the same trend in commercial voice assistants for Siri, Alexa, Cortana, and Google Assistant. The dominance of female cues in agents in assistant roles received much more criticism for reinforcing the gender bias in a social context and doing more harm than helping in closing the gender gap in gender inequality. But however, gender stereotypes seem to be dynamic and reflect the changing gender roles in our society since the mid-20th century, where we see progress towards the gender balance in previously male-dominated occupations. A comprehensive meta-analysis by Eagly shows a dramatic change in stereotypical traits and roles in the last several decades. They found a trend towards gender equality in competence trait, which was previously male-dominated, and diminishing male advantages in agency trait, where more people seem to believe in gender equality over the years. So this result emphasized the origins of gender stereotypes in social roles of women and men, where it seems to be more likely the stereotypes are assigned to genders because of the frequent observation of them in particular roles. So this results for changing gender stereotypes, changing gender roles, and a dynamic understanding of the notion of gender inspired us to examine this phenomena in virtual agents. And that's why we wanted to know whether the gendered appearance of agents alone affect the perception of gender stereotypical traits or the preference over certain stereotypical roles. But different than previous work, we wanted to focus on the individual agents with static facial cues for gender in human-like 3D agents, and also wanted to introduce the concept of androgyny with male and female genders to evaluate the stereotypical traits and roles. So following from our research question, wanted to create the realistic agents to represent different genders. Therefore, we conducted a two-stage methodology. And stage one is an iterative design process to create agents that have representative male, female, and androgynous gender with minimal differences in static facial features. In the following steps, we have evaluated these agents based on the stereotypical gender traits and roles. Our focus is on the visual cues, specifically the agent's facial appearance and its effect on triggering gender stereotypes in male, female, and androgynous agents. But unlike the previous studies, we aim to achieve character design for these characters with a minimal amount of changes in the visual attributes to eliminate the effect of various other factors that are influenced by the appearance of the agents. That's why we removed these features while designing our agents and tried to manipulate these features to achieve the character that are realistic enough but did not possess any stereotypical attributes. So in our first study for the character design evolution study, we first created 6 characters to represent 3 gender categories and ran a study to ask participants what gender they think the agent belonged to. and further asked them to provide design-related justification for their decisions. We have recruited 15 participants working in a design school and part of an intelligent agent visualization lab. From the iteration 1, we see the result showed a tendency for perceiving the androgynous character as male due to the short hair, but recognizing female for long hair quickly. And also participants commented on the prominent cheekbones for considering the androgynous character as male, but Adam Apple's jawline and eyelashes were overlooked. So following this feedback, we created the second set of virtual agents, focusing more on the androgynous agent design to avoid bias towards perceiving them as male. So we removed the overlooked features and refined the androgynous character design by including several attributes from both male and female features. And we also realized from the participant comments and our analysis that hair might change the effect of some variables, such as cheek shape, by blocking the visual cues. So we decided not to include long hair and instead use a mid-length hairstyle. Then we asked the same participants again to evaluate this second set of agents. So after the final evaluation of study 1's second iteration, we picked these 3 characters to include in study 2 as the representative of male, female, and androgynous character. The main difference between the female and androgynous character was only the eyebrows, jaw, and hairstyle. Though our aim was not to evaluate the effect of each attribute of gender, but rather to design good representative of each gender category with the minimal differences. So we prepared the second study, including these agents, to examine the perception of stereotypical traits and gender roles as we have discussed in our research questions. So we conducted the study on Amazon Mechanical Turk. We showed the portrait images of the agents in random order to the audience and asked them the stereotypical roles and trait questionnaire. For the stereotypical traits, we followed the well-studied communion, agency, and competence variable and questionnaire items that is represented by the research on stereotypical traits, and participants evaluated each agent based on the stereotypical traits questionnaire. And for the stereotypical roles, we have analyzed the US labor force statistics data to find the typical male and female dominated roles. These are also used in some other previous studies. So we chose 2 female dominated roles and 2 male dominated roles from there. And additionally, we needed to choose 2 representative roles for gender balance categories. So we picked the news reporter and storyteller role as a gender balance role category. And again, participants also evaluated each agent based on these roles. So from the result analysis, we see participants were asked to rate their opinion on a 5-point Likert scale similar to the study 1, and the results showed that the design of the agents were indeed perceived significantly different based on their gender and consistent with their desired appearance. So we found that even though the participants successfully perceived the differences in the agent's gender, our finding mostly points towards a gender balanced view on stereotypical traits. So similar to English result, the combination score were not significant between the genders, and our agency and communion score also showed a more gender balanced category. Though our agency results showed a parallel trend with English finding on increased perception of gender equality, but our communion score was slightly different than English result because we got no significant difference between genders. However, one of the important finding in our study was the significant effect of the interaction between the participants' gender and agents' gender in communion score. Female participants' score were significantly lower for all agents except the androgynous agent, which was higher than the male and female. But this trend was reversed for the male participants. And also, we obtained a significant result only for the news reporter role, which was considered as a gender balanced category. We saw that androgynous agents were rated lower for the category by male participants, and this effect was also seen previously in the communion result. So we believe this finding would trigger further inspection as there are no comparative results in human stereotype research on androgyny. So finally, we can say that our result showed that the rigorous design process was successful in generating representative male, female, and androgynous agents with the minimal facial differences. And unlike previous work, evaluated the gender perception of our design agents before evaluating the gender-based stereotypes, used realistic 3D looking characters instead of the cartoon-like representation, and also included androgynous agents in our study. While participants successfully differentiated between agents' gender, they showed a trend toward rating all agents similarly. So moreover, most roles were perceived similarly, suggesting that gender alone may not be a justified reason for choosing certain agents for stereotypical roles. And lastly, we saw an effect of participants' gender and agents' gender, which was an interesting result that triggered further examination. So this paper is intended as an effort towards progressive and inclusive approach for gender stereotypes in virtual agents. The non-significant results of female and male-dominated roles showed that mostly non-explicit reasoning behind using female gender agent as assistant and healthcare role, and only male gendered agents for coaches and advisor roles is not supported nowadays. So our result indicated that these roles could be used interchangeably and even with an androgynous agents. So we present our findings in the hope to foster discussion in virtual agent research and frequent stereotypes in gender representation, because as there are very few studies are focused on androgynous agents. So we hope that our design methodology and result would encourage future work and further research in inclusive technology. And therefore, for the future work, we'd like to extend our evaluation in an interactive scenario and control for the dynamic variables such as gesture, gaze, and facial expressions. Okay, thank you everyone for listening to our presentation. Now, if you have any question, you can go to our paper to see more details, or we can have a Q&A to answer your questions.